What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Today we're looking at the retextured Falkland Islands on the South Atlantic map. As a lot of you know, I have been hating the South Atlantic map pretty much since the day it came out. And I think today is finally the first time that I could say that flying low level on this map, at least around the Falkland Islands, is pretty damn decent. And today we're going to have a look at that, specifically by flying a low-level route in the F-15C from Mount Pleasant over here. And we're going to be cutting in through the mountains and the valleys, pretty low-level hills rather than mountains, but nonetheless some pretty high-ish terrain that should make it pretty interesting to fly low-level through the valleys. I'm going to show you the retexturing that they've done here, and it actually looks pretty damn awesome. We'll be flying out to the Onion Range here to do a couple of strafing runs. This is what they do in real life. There's a bunch of different ranges on the Falkland Islands since it's so barren, but this is one of them that I've tried to recreate, so obviously had to use my imagination a little bit for the targets at this range, so you can have a look as we do a couple of strafing runs, and then we continue our route through the valleys here, through the terrain, towards Port Stanley, where we make a sharp right turn and back in towards Mount Pleasant. So without further ado, sit back and enjoy the ride.
We have 2 good engine starts. You're clear to disconnect the headset. We'll see you on the left with the pin. Thanks a lot.
Here we go, burners are on. We're rolling down the runway at Mount Pleasant on the Falkland Islands, which I have to say, after many updates, where I was quite frankly bitterly disappointed as we do a typical low transition in the F-15, accelerating down to the end of the runway and doing a zoom climb, which is what the F-15s and the Americans do very often, which looks freaking awesome. So, as I was saying, the recent updates to the Falkland Islands have that was the first update to the South Atlantic map that I've ever thought, my god, they've actually changed this and it actually looks pretty decent. Now, they've done about 1 million updates before, and they keep saying we've improved this, we've improved that, we've changed the way the terrain is, generated, or how the satellite imagery is stitched together, etc. And every time I try it, I jump in the hope that finally this will be a sort of low-level experience that we were all hoping for, at least I was hoping for, especially, flying through the fjords and the mountains and that incredible scenery. You imagine yourself there in real life, it'll be the most spectacular thing you've ever seen if you were to ever fly low-level in a jet there. And of course, reality in DCS world, that is, the virtual reality, is absolutely goddamn terrible. To say the least. The resolution of the textures is awful. The way the satellite imagery is stitched together, put together, is awful. As you get low level, those horrible shadows look terrible. You can see the differences between different satellite images from different times, from maybe even different satellites from different companies. I don't know, they're all stitched together in a Frankenstein horrible way. Some of it looks ridiculously green, some of it looks dull. I mean, it's just terrible in every way, shape and form possible, with the vegetation often not even fitting in very well with the tree lines, and just everything apart from the towns, which are pretty good, although the performance wasn't that great. Apart from the towns, the airports and the air bases, it sucked. But now look at this, the Falkland Islands, low level. We've got some brilliant resolution textures. Everything fits in really nicely, and this mountainous terrain in particular around the central part of where the Mount Pleasant is, so that's the northeast island of the Falkland Islands, if you will, or the northeast side of the Falkland Islands. Look how cool this looks. This genuinely looks fantastic for the first time ever. I mean, yes, the resolution of the textures could be higher, but considering everything else we have in DCS, pretty much any map, this actually looks damn awesome. I mean, look at this. Now, people have always been telling me when I complained about, especially the Falkland Islands flying low level, and I said from the very beginning, it sucks, it's terrible, it looks awful, this is unflyable, I wish I could get my money back for this map. And everyone always, not everyone, but a bunch of people said, oh, you don't understand, it's barren in real life, there's nothing there, there's no trees, that's why it looks bad, and that's why it is like that in real life, so therefore DCS is actually a very good representation. Now I'm like, guys, no it isn't. It doesn't matter. You can fly over a desert, by the way. We've just reached Onion Range here. It's just coming up, which is where we're going to do a little strafing run. This is where the RAF does it. I believe in real life. Some RAF pilots can comment down below, or ex-RAF pilots. If you're watching, let me know if you've ever been to the Onion Range and if you guys have done any air-to-ground stuff in there. Be interested to know. But apparently this is kind of one of the places where it can be done. Anyway, as I was saying, you can fly over a desert in real life, over some dunes or whatever, and it'll look spectacular at low level. It doesn't need to have trees, buildings, whatever. I agree that having cluttered buildings and trees makes anything more interesting and more enjoyable maybe for that sort of depth perception as you're flying low level. But that's not to say that you can fly over some relatively barren or flat terrain and it should look bad or boring as we come in for a strafing run the F-15, which doesn't actually have an air-to-ground mode as far as I'm aware in DCS. Somebody can comment down below if the F-15C actually has an air-to-ground mode for the cannon, specifically for the gun. Obviously, I'm aware of the fact that this is an air superiority fighter with no air-to-ground weaponry other than a gun that could potentially be used as we continue on our way towards Port Stanley here. Flying low level as we skip a little bit ahead in the route here. Just flying through this mountainous terrain, like I said, northwest side of the island is absolutely fantastic. I love it. I mean, yes, it could be better, but look at this. This is like the stereotypical kind of, that you've seen on all the kind of Falkland War conflict kind of videos and photos. Those rocks sticking out just out of the terrain there. And I think the way they've integrated that super well, it looks brilliant, and it doesn't look like it's out of place. I mean, they could have stuck it in a few more places, I feel, just to give that sort of three-dimensional look to the terrain. But overall, you have to admit that the texturing here now, in a lot of places, now, granted, not everywhere in the Falkland Island map looks quite as good as this, and there definitely is occasions where in some parts you feel like there's different satellite images stitched together, and they're not quite as good as they could be. But I think in this part in particular, they've done a really, really good job. And my only question now is, why the hell can the rest of the South Atlantic map not look like this? I mean, if they're capable of providing us this kind of quality texturing on the Falkland Islands and make a relatively flat piece of land. Okay, I know there's some rolling hills here, but relatively speaking, this is kind of flat-ish. They can make this look exciting to fly low level and look really decent and like it's quite natural and realistic looking. Why can't we have this all over the entire South Atlantic map? And why can't we have the Cola map, which can look like this? By the way, I kind of thought about this part in particular. I think this is some kind of weather radar station or maybe early warning radar. I'm not actually sure, but I kind of wanted to do like a cool flyby here just so some photographers can take photos of the F-15 like they do in the Mac. Looks pretty similar actually. So anyway, we continue out towards Port Stanley here, just approaching Port Stanley, and as I've said, when it comes to things like built up areas, villages, towns, even like separate farms here and there, it's fantastic. It's always been fantastic, and even on the mainland it's pretty good. The performance isn't never been that great for me overall, but it's more than bearable, and it works 99.9% of the time for most things you're doing, so I'm not really going to complain about that. And also the other thing is, look at these coastlines here. We often complain in DCS that coastlines look terrible, right? They look like straight lines and they have these sharp edges, and it always looks weird. But look, the Falkland Islands clearly demonstrate that it is possible to do a really well integrated coastline, or the line between any kind of water intersecting with land that can look pretty realistic. Look at these rocks here sticking out. I mean, this looks great. This looks freaking great. Look how good this looks. It just looks so natural. Unlike, say, if you guys go to the Caucasus map, you know exactly what I'm talking about. That it's just hilarious how bad that is. It's like a straight line. And also, even on the Marianas Islands map, which I think is one of the best maps, even there the coastlines and the beaches look like they are just, I don't even know, like they're made out of some kind of 1980s game. Whereas, you know, here, look at how realistic these coastlines look. And obviously clearly demonstrating that, yes, in DCS, even with the current map development kit, you can make very, very, very good and realistic coastlines without those stupid sharp edges or straight lines. So I don't understand why we can't have that on all maps and everywhere, quite frankly. And I don't understand why we can't have the rest of the South Atlantic map looking exactly like this. I mean, they're capable of doing these awesome textures here. Why can't they do them at the rest of the map? I don't get it. I'm not showing you the rest of the map because I still hate it. Quite frankly, don't really want to fly there. Anywhere outside of maybe doing a specific sort of air show, you know, at some specific airport or something. But apart from that, the low level is just a complete write-off. At high level, this map looks great, but then all maps look great at high level. So, you know, it's just I'm just confused why it's taken them so many years to get to this point, finally, as we make the break at 1,500 feet and 350 knots over Mount Pleasant to come in. The typical United States Air Force circuit to land, not the way the RAF does it, which is way cooler at 500 feet. And in fact, I'm pretty sure they go pretty quick over there in the Falkland Islands just to make it look cool occasionally. But we're coming in the F-15C, which actually I love flying. I wish this was a full fidelity module, if I'm entirely honest, because this is one of the nicest aircraft to fly in DCS. I find there's some weird issue I have with the rudders being overly sensitive, but I'm sure I could probably figure out what that issue is. Maybe it's my particular setup, not 100% sure. But the F-15C is such a gem of an aircraft to fly. It feels so stable, so sharp, so nice to control. Absolutely love flying this thing. But you know, the cockpit sucks. It's very old, and you know, just looks like they could really do with just a nice update. Even a nice Flaming Cliffs 3 update to the cockpit would just be, you know, go a long way here with a virtual pilot body, etc. But of course, I wish we had a full fidelity F-15C, because this airplane is awesome to fly. Unlike the F-15E Strike Eagle, which I absolutely hated. Flew it for about 20 minutes, realized I'd never want to fly this airplane again. Now, obviously, with Razbam situation, I'll have it anyway, because I just think, well, it's never going to be supported or finished, so I just got rid of it. But anyway, with my ramblings aside, I hope you guys have enjoyed this little overview of the Falkland Islands map. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you think any other parts in the South Atlantic map which are worth flying. And hopefully I'll catch you in the next video. Adios!